Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right everybody, thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comic books, and I let you know what I thought about them, and we always start with the pick of the week. But before we get into that, I will say that this was kind of a lackluster week. All right? Like last week we had a fantastic new comic book day, but this week there's a little bit of slim pickings. There's some good stuff, there's some decent stuff, there's some bad stuff, but for the most part, nothing really stood out super far above and beyond the rest. So, my pick of the week this week, the pick of the week is Void Rivals #1. Now, this book is kind of a big deal. I've known about this book for like a month and a half now, right? They revealed the big surprise to retailers and all that kind of stuff. The book itself, it's a new Robert Kirkman book. It's promised to be the building of a new shared universe by Robert Kirkman. We got Lorenzo Del Felice on the artwork here, who just recently just blew my mind with the book Chroma. They worked together on Oblivion Song, right? This book, in a nutshell, is about two warring alien races, and a member of one gets stranded on a planet, deserted, his ship crashes and all this kind of stuff. Then there's another person from the opposing faction who's there, and they start, even though they're rivals, they start like helping each other, and they're building this like relationship, right? That being said, that's kind of the book in a nutshell. I'm about to spoil this book because what's going to get people really excited about this book is the spoilage. Now, this has been revealed by Bleeding Cool earlier this week, but I know not everybody checks out Bleeding Cool. I know not everybody is in the know about what's going on here. And I have had to be very silent because of my position as a retailer. But now that the book is releasing, now that the stuff is out, I will spoil the book. So spoiler warning, if you don't want this book spoiled, just kind of like breeze through the video until you see me get to another book, okay? But this is from Image Comics, this is from Skybound, this is Robert Kirkman, and here is the spoilers. Robert Kirkman has the Transformers and the G.I. Joe license. And Void Rivals is actually the start of his new shared universe with G.I. Joe and Transformers and new creations that he's coming up with. There were rumors that this was happening. We talked about them on the weekly wrap-up. We talked about them on Rockin' Robbie Live. We were like, yo, I'm hearing strong rumors that Robert Kirkman is getting the G.I. Joe and the Transformers license. Well, he's got it. Skybound's going to be making Transformers comics, G.I. Joe comics. So the reason why this is the pick of the week is, first of all, it's a really solid issue with really great artwork and really solid writing and great character development. But then that reveal, and in this day and age, to be able to, for the most part, hold this in for so freaking long, that blows my mind. Like, I think there needs to be more surprises like this in comics. Like the death of Miss Marvel and Amazing Spider-Man. We should have, like, that should have been a surprise. It should have had an impact or something, right? So in this book, in the midst of this story, Jetfire shows up. Jetfire shows up and he's like, yo, what's going on? I'm dipping. And he just flies out. But it sets up so much more to come. I don't want to show any images in case people are flipping through trying to get to the non-spoilers part. However, with this book comes the announcement of a Transformers #1 in October by Daniel Warren Johnson, a Duke #1, and a Cobra Commander #1 by Joshua Williamson. Y'all, I love G.I. Joe. I love Transformers even more. I'm so excited for a super fan like Robert Kirkman to have this property, to be elevating it to a proper position because, you know, I get it. G.I. Joe comics, Transformers comics, they don't always sell the best. But when you put that together with Robert Kirkman, his passion, his love, and creators like Joshua Williamson and Daniel Warren Johnson, y'all, I cannot wait to go to HeroesCon this week and see Daniel Warren Johnson be like, bruh, I'm so damned excited for your Transformers, and it's the most excited I've been for a Transformers book. Well, I guess since the Pat Lee day with Dreamwave, but we all see how that turned out. But I trust Robert Kirkman. This was a really solid issue, and I will guarantee you this. If you pick up one book this week, make it this one, because it's worth it, it's cool, and if you're a fan of Transformers and G.I. Joe, so was Robert Kirkman, and he's there. Spoilers over. Let's move on. Klik, Klik, Boom, #1 is a new one from Image Comics, written by Doug Wagner, a good friend of ours who canceled his appearance at HeroesCon for the second year in a row. Doug, we need to hang out. We need to have a drink. When are you coming back into town? Come on, bro. Let's hang out. Anyway, Klik, Klik, Boom is a really solid book from Doug Wagner, and the artist is Doug Dabbs. I really like this one. This one is about a woman she's deaf, and the way she communicates is through Polaroids. And she's been leaving these clues through Polaroids, through people. She had a mentor who something tragic happened, and then she's now on this like path of I don't know if vengeance or revenge is the right word, because we haven't really gotten into it. We got this other character. It was a really solid first issue. Doug Wagner is such a great writer when it comes to crime fiction, and this book really has some great characters. It really has a great setup. It's got some solid artwork, and it carried me all the way through, and I really enjoyed it. Then from Top Cow / Image, we have Haunt You Till the End, with artwork by Andrea Muti, written by Ryan Cady. This one's all right. It's okay. I really do like the artwork. I love what Andrea does with the artwork here, but the story itself was just kind of okay. It's like set in the future. There's climate change. There's crisis on the earth, all this kind of stuff. That's interesting world building enough, but they don't really dive into that through the story. It's about like this dude who's a spiritualist, and he's hired by the super rich guy because he's like, yo, this place is haunted, we're going to go. It's all right. It's got some decent reveals, but for the most part, it kind of dragged. It was a little boring, and it was just a little bit monotonous at times. Battle Chasers #10. I'm going to go ahead and give the J. Scott Campbell variant for Battle Chasers #10 the cover of the week. And that should be for obvious reasons, okay? It should be for obvious reasons. Because first of all, I'm a big fan of Battle Chasers. I'm a big fan of Red Monica. And I'm a fan of J. Scott Campbell, and I'm excited. So Joe Madureira, Battle Chasers #10. Some of y'all weren't even born, probably, when the last issue of Battle Chasers came out. Battle Chasers was a book that launched in like April of 1998. I was still in high school when this book came out. Joe Madureira, who had made a solid name for himself on the X-Men, him and a few other people like J. Scott Campbell, Humberto Ramos, they decided to go over to Image and start their own imprint called Cliffhanger that eventually got bought up by DC. Danger Girl was the J. Scott Campbell book. It went for like 7 issues. They've done things here and there. Crimson, which was the book by Humberto Ramos, which I absolutely love, went the full 24 issues, told its full stories. Then he also did Out There. There were some other books like Steampunk and things like that, but man, Battle Chasers, I never thought I would be here live on Pop Culture Philosophers talking about Battle Chasers. It has been over 20 years since the last issue of this book. Now, Joe Mad has stepped away from the art. We got art by Ludo Lulabi, and I'm just going to let you know, if you're unfamiliar with this, I think there's a trade paperback available. You can find most of these issues in dollar bins and stuff like that. I loved Battle Chasers. I really did. I was so distraught and disappointed and let down when Battle Chasers just ended on a cliffhanger. And Joe Mad's like, you know, it's never coming back, right? I want to do video games. I want to do this. I want to do that. But it's back. And even though it doesn't have that Joe Mad artwork, and the artwork is not quite what I was wanting or expecting, I found this to be a really cool issue, actually. Mostly because, I mean, you got some Red Sonja ass work in there, and that's nice. But they do a great job of letting you know who the characters are, where the story was. And I'll be honest, I didn't get a chance to reread my Battle Chasers comics, so if I didn't have that, I would have been completely lost. But I still enjoyed the book. I liked it. It was nostalgic. It threw me back to the day. Yes, would I love this book more if Joe Mad was still doing the artwork? For sure. But that J. Scott Campbell cover, like, it's hot. It's just so hot. And the book is good too. Then we got Something Epic #2 from Szymon Kudranski. I really liked issue #1. The one thing I said about issue #1 was that maybe it was a little bit too verbose at times. It kind of stagnated it just a little bit. That has ironed out a little bit. There's still some pages here where I'm like, maybe we should spread out this exposition or this explanation a little bit more, like through the issue. But that being said, I'm very impressed with this. Szymon Kudranski is doing a great job here because, and we were talking about this on the Best Comics of the Month stream that we did last month, and this book was brought up, I think by Nick. And he was like, some good, solid ideas. However, the thing is, Kudranski's artwork, once you get into the style, like you know it, you see it, you pretty much, you get what's expected. What I love about this book is that he's really going out there to like change up that style when it's appropriate. This is a book about imagination. It's about a young kid whose mom is dying from cancer. So there's a lot of strong emotional connection there and things like that, right? And that's going on, but he's also able to see ideas manifest from the collective unconscious out there in the real world, like fictional characters, things that you think about and bring about into the world. He can see them. So there's like anime characters, and there's like superhero characters, and there's like monster characters and all this stuff. And each one of them is done with a different artistic style. So Szymon Kudranski, who I think is a fantastic freaking artist, really stretching themselves to develop other styles to represent other artistic styles, other genre styles. I think that's phenomenal. I love the vibe of the story. I love where we're going. It's getting deep. And once again, I love it when an artist says, screw it, I'm going to do my own thing. And I think that that is such an amazing thing to do. And it can be scary and it can be bold. And I think Szymon is doing some bold and daring work right now, stepping out on his own, doing his own thing. And so far, 2 issues in, Something Epic is really scratching that itch. Then we got Gunslinger Spawn here with issue #21. I've never loved Brett Booth as much as I love him right now. He's given us just cool, old school Spawn, giant type stuff. I remember Todd McFarlane, I've said this before, Todd McFarlane said, you really only need like 2 or 3 images per book to really make people like sink their teeth into it. We just recently had this conversation multiple times here on the channel. What's more important, story or artwork? Well, obviously, they both need to be super solid, but sometimes when the artwork is able to elevate an okay story to a certain level, that's where it sells me, and that's what's happening here. It's amazing, it's super cool, and yes, Smell of the Week is going to Gunslinger Spawn, issue #21. I absolutely love this book. Dinosaurs, demons, angels, gunslingers, spawns. What's not to love? What's the plural of spawns? Is it spawn eye? No, it's not. Old Dog is here with issue #5. Yes, issue #5. It's a really good issue of Old Dog, man. Declan Shalvey doing a great job with the artwork, but also just doing a great job with the story. Having some really cool high concept type stuff, but doing something really interesting with it structurally. There's some really interesting things being done structurally here in this issue that I absolutely love. And it makes me just... I love Declan Shalvey when he's working with Warren Ellis. Like, I want Injection to finish, like, more than anybody else out there, but he's really taken a lot of that Ellis style and applied it to his own thing. I've read stuff that he's done on his own. Savage Town is such a great book. He's done other things, Time Before Time, but this book kind of has that, like, Ellisian feel to it, a vibe. Really cool, high-concept science fiction, but also grounded in a very super agent action-y type way. I thought it was really well done. From Marvel, we got a new Black Panther, issue #1, written by Eve L. Ewing, who I thought did a great job on books like Ironheart, so I was excited to check this one out. The artwork's by Chris Allen. The artwork's okay. There's some really big moments that really work. And in fact, I don't think the artwork's bad. And It's got a lot of detail and density to it, but it never really comes across as super cluttered. Some really great double-page splashes, but the coloring on this book really kind of... There are moments where I like it and other moments where I just don't. So there's something about the coloring that I don't really necessarily like. The book itself is okay. T'Challa has been he's no longer the king of Wakanda. But beyond that, he's been exiled now. So he goes to a town who's been named after his father, and he becomes the Black Panther again. So it kind of is a back to basics, almost kind of grounded approach to Black Panther, where he's got to keep a secret identity. No one can know he's in the country, and he's trying to do good. But it does kind of get a little bit lost in the plot. It's got more telling than it's got showing. The action is there at certain times. The artwork can be dynamic at certain times. But for the most part, this book just kind of lulls its way through. So it wasn't super kinetic, and it didn't really energized me when I checked it out. Then we got Spider-Man India #1. Spider-Man India was a character that was introduced years and years ago, and I guess he's in the new Spider-Verse movie, which I still haven't seen. I hear it's phenomenal. I'm excited to check it out. So Marvel's got to capitalize on this whole Spider-Verse stuff, so they're doing a Spider-Man India book. It's got an entirely Indian creative team, I think, which I applaud, but the book itself was not very good. I didn't really like the coloring. I didn't really like the story. It was just kind of jumbled. It was kind of jarring. It was just kind of clunky. It didn't really work for me. It was all right, but for the most part, it was just like trying to be, yo, this is the Indian Spider-Man, and not just trying to tell me a very compelling story. However, it is the first appearance, I guess, of Lizard India from that universe. Then we got Amazing Spider-Man 27. Amazing Spider-Man 27 is a very mixed bag. First of all, it's got the elements of a fun Spider-Man comic, and that's cool. Ed McGuinness artwork is great. Doc Ock is back. He's trying to make a move against Spider-Man and J. Jonah Jameson. We got all this kind of stuff going on. But we're also dealing with the aftermath of the death of Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, and it just feels out of fucking nowhere. Sorry for the language. It just feels out of nowhere. It feels clunky. It feels... It's tonally dissonant, right? Like it's got a mix match of tones that doesn't work. It clashes. Tonal clash. That's the word I was trying to think of. Amazing Spider-Man 27 should have been a really fun book, or it should have been a book diving into the guilt of Norman Osborn and Peter Parker. But it's trying to be both, and it doesn't do anything at all. Amazing Spider-Man, this run, I might be more disappointed in it than the Beyond era and the Nick Spencer stuff, and I don't think we've had a good solid Spider-Man book since. I mean, I liked it a lot during Brand New Day, so I'll say that. I won't go back as far as Mark Bagley and David Michelini. Anyway, then we get Carnage here with issue number 14. Carnage Reigns, issue number 5, part 5 of 7. This has been a big crossover between Carnage, Miles Morales Spider-Man, and Red Goblin, and it's a solid book. I really like it. Maybe a little bit too long in the tooth. Maybe it's just kind of taking too much time. Maybe this should have been a 7-part series, maybe a 5. I don't know. It could have been truncated just a little bit. But I love and applaud the idea that this is actually a real crossover. Like, if you didn't read Red Goblin, you're going to be a little bit lost. If you didn't read Miles, you're going to be a little bit lost. So that's kind of annoying that it's a true crossover, but it's also kind of exciting that it's a true crossover. And I think Alex Packnadell's doing a great job with these characters. Artwork's okay, could be a little bit better, but it's decent enough. Then we got Doctor Strange here with issue number 4. We got a different artist here on this issue. I don't like him as much as Pascal Ferry, so the art for me was not really working for me, and it's a one-shot comic, and that's something that Jed McKay, the writer's been doing very, very well, is kind of doing these self-contained stories, but at the same time building a larger narrative, and it does do that story-wise, but the artwork just doesn't grab me, doesn't bring me in. This book mostly focuses in on Wong and his new Agents of Wand and all that kind of stuff, his team building that up, something that needs to happen, and when you're doing a book structurally like this, where each issue is kind of like one and done, but a part of the larger narrative, and you want to introduce a concept like the Agents of Wand, you do have to give them their own issue, but with the art change, it just kind of felt like a lull in the series and not a very important piece of information for the series, which is what I think it was trying to be. Clobber in Time, issue number 4 is here. Steve Skroce just killing it artistically. This is a Thing team-up book. We had him team up with Wolverine, we had him team up with the Hulk, we had him team up with Doctor Strange, and in this one, Doctor Doom, and that's an unlikely team-up. That relationship between Benjamin and Victor, I've always loved that throughout all the Fantastic Four stuff. I mean, don't forget that Benjamin broke Victor's hands. Victor's never forgotten that, but the artwork is insane. The ideas are insane. It's just the execution of the script is a little overly verbose, and it takes away from the dynamism of the artwork. I love the detail-oriented artwork, but the story could just kind of have a little bit more room to breathe, and I think it would work a little bit better. That being said, I love this idea of a Thing team-up book by Steve Skroce. Great artwork that all is kind of connected together, so I thought it was still pretty cool. The Excellent is here with issue number 4. I mean, what more can I say? Pete Milligan, Mike Allred, Laura Allred, when they do a book together, I'm there. I've been a fan of their work on X-Force, Ecstatics, and The Excellent all the way through for over 20 years at this point. It's fantastic, and they produce more content together than Battle Chasers. So there you go. Moon Knight number 24 is here. Another solid issue of Moon Knight. This is the one Moon Knight series that's done something that no other Moon Knight series has done. It's kept my interest not just past 10 issues, not just past 12 issues, not just past 18 issues, but 24 issues into this Moon Knight run, and I am still absorbed with it. We got a different artist. It's not Vincentini, it's Federico Sabantini, but the artwork is great. It's got a dynamic quality to it. The story is cool. It's a moment of reflection for Moon Knight before we get to the big 25th issue, and I just applaud Marvel for allowing a Moon Knight book to go that long. So that's pretty cool. Let's jump over to DC. And from DC, we've got Green Lantern issue number 2 from Jeremy Adams. Jeremy Adams had a very consistent run on The Flash that I really liked for the most part. I didn't think it ended necessarily the best, but throughout most of it, it was really solid, and I think that that's what we're going to get with his Green Lantern book. Issue number 1 was okay. I thought it was a little bit just like every other first run of Green Lantern, like every other Green Lantern number 1 I've ever read. Every time a new writer comes in, it's like we got the same story. Oh, Hal's back on Earth from a long absence. Oh, he's trying to reconnect with Carol. Carol doesn't want to deal with that. But this book, issue number 2, really kind of expands on that in a really exciting way. It's got some really fun superhero action. It's got some nice emotional drama. And it's got some solid artwork as well. So I think Jeremy Adams is going to be very comfortable on this book. And the backup story by Philip Kennedy Johnson, I believe, about John Stewart, that was pretty cool and some interesting concepts there as well. Then we got Batman Incorporated issue number 9. We had the introduction of Joker Incorporated in the last issue, where we're going to spin that around. We're going to take our expectations. We're going to twist them a little bit. This has been a fantastic series. One of DC's best series coming out. It's supremely undersung. I don't hear a lot of people talking about Batman Inc. It doesn't seem to sell particularly well, but this is a great book that at first I was worried would focus too much on Ghostmaker and not enough on the rest of the team. But Ed Brisson has been able to just absolutely nail the balance between Ghostmaker and the team and the story and the drive of this book. It's been absolutely phenomenal. Superman Lost, issue number 4. Well, you know, usually 4 issues into a Christopher Priest run, I get a little bit lost. So Superman Lost, more like Robbie Lost. I'm starting to lose the plot. I'm starting to kind of fall out of this book. I'm kind of like not taking it seriously or important. I like how each issue is kind of doing its own thing as part of the overall structure, but at the same time, it's stretching thin. It's a weird stretching. It's doing this, it's doing that, and it's just not connecting with me as much. So I don't know. I might come back on the next issue, but it depends on how big that week's going to be. Then we got Spirit World issue number 2, another book I was completely lost on. I've read the Lazarus Planet book that Spirit World was introduced in. I read first issue, I read second issue, and I'm just like, I don't get it. I don't understand what's going on. I don't really fully connect with this character. I don't fully connect with the idea of why Constantine's in here, and it just feels jumbled, clunky, and a little bit muddy for me, and I think this was my last issue of Spirit World. Then we got Wildcat issue number 8. Another book that's just losing me a little bit. First of all, can I just make a complaint? I hate the lettering in this book. I cannot stand the lettering in Wildcats. I think that Matthew Rosenberg could really do a great Wildcats book, but we need to not have it be so focused in on being connected to the DC universe. We have to have it be its own thing, do its own thing, in its own world. You want to reinterpret things, that's fine, but for the most part, it's just been a little weird. It's been a little, I don't know what's going on. It's been a little bit confusing, and honestly, most of my DC books have been confusing. Including this one, Sandman Universe, Nightmare Country, The Glass House, issue number 3. Am I over it? I think I may be over this book. I don't know. I don't want to be. I love Lissandro Esther's artwork. I think the artwork in this book is phenomenal. But honestly, this book lost me at the last issue of the last volume when it was all a setup for another Sandman Universe series, and then it left dangling, and now they're getting back to it, but I've lost the connection to the story. Now, maybe if I sit down and reread all the issues, it's going to work, but for the most part, DC's just been kind of miscommunication for me this week. Then we got a new one from Oni Press called Xeno Issue number 1. It's a really cool book, a sci-fi, a dark sci-fi anthology with a bunch of different writers and a bunch of different artists. The first story is by Melissa Flores and Daniel Irizarry. I really liked that story. Then we had a story by Jordan Thomas and Shaky Kane. I really liked that story. We had a story about Phil Hester that I thought was okay. By the way, the second story is about like this whole like wave of McCarthyism and stuff like that. So it's science fiction, but it's got some thematic relevance. But man, this last story, which was illustrated by Nick Cagnetti from Pink Lemonade and written by Chris Condon from That Texas Blood, I loved this book. So 3 out of the 4 stories really worked for me. If you like dark sci-fi anthologies, you definitely need to check this one out. If you're a fan of Nick Cagnetti like I am, you definitely need to check it out. Nick, if you're watching this video, excited to see you at Heroes Con, excited to set up a conversation for some time afterwards. Then we got From the World of Barbaric, or from the pages of Barbaric, Queen of Swords, issue number 1 from Vault Comics, Michael Morisi, artwork by, is it Chris Howell? That's why I liked it. Yep, Corin, not Chris. Corin Howe, I really like this. A spin-off from Barbaric, but if you've been caught up with Barbaric, you're going to know what's going on. This is about this witch who's made a promise to Soren. She's going to go find this mystical orb. We get all these characters that we were introduced to in the last few issues of Barbaric working together, some explanations on this character. I really liked it. I thought it was super solid, and I'm really excited to what's to come because the final pages of this were phenomenal. Then we got The Nasty issue number 3, written by our friend John Lees, with artwork in this issue by Adam Cahoon. I really like this. This is a love letter to 80s horror films, right? It's about this kid who grew up loving video nasties, right? Movies that are banned by like the British government or something like that, right? And there's this one lost film, they're trying to recreate it. Meanwhile, this dude's got like an imaginary friend from his favorite slasher series who's been following him all of his life. And now when he's trying to make this lost film that they get a copy of, they're going to show it for this video store to revolutionize the business at this video store. And he winds up, the tape winds up getting destroyed, and their idea is to recreate this movie on their own. And now his imagination is coming into the real world. Plus, there's a lot of talk about just the prudish behavior of the people that were like so anti-slasher movies and anti all this stuff. And I really thought this was good. John Lees is a hardcore horror fan. I've talked to him about horror. He's a great dude. And by the way, John, if you're watching, great book. Excited to meet you at Heroes Con this week for the first time. Then we got Frank Frazetta's Mothman, issue number 1. I was very excited for this book. I'm into cryptozoology. I'm into the paranormal stuff. I'm into Frank Frazetta. So I was like, you give me a Frank Frazetta cover of the Mothman. You give me a book about the Mothman. I'm going to be game. I'm down for it, right? When Department of Truth did it, blew my mind. I loved those issues. This book sucked. This book sucked so bad. It was just so on the nose. It was just so obvious. It was just so like Fisher Price almost in a way. It was Fisher Price, meaning like baby's first comic script. This just was absolutely terrible in my opinion. I hated it. I hated it. I was looking forward to this book so much, and I hated it. I thought it was so bad. If you read that, let me know what you think about it. From Scout Comics, we got Death Drop Drag Assassin. So this is about a drag queen who's also an assassin. Now, she used to be an assassin for this Assassin's Guild, broke away from that life, cut all ties, became a drag queen, and still is like this vigilante type figure. I had a lot of fun with this, right? A lot of fun. Maybe a little bit too into the lingo, but I was into that. I really enjoyed this book. I really enjoyed the illumination on certain aspects of the community. I really loved the idea of a drag queen assassin just kicking ass, taking names, and being like, yo, nobody's going to mention that they got their ass kicked by a dude in high heels. I thought that was absolutely amazing, and it was a super fun book. So I thought that was cool. And then we got Betty Page #1 from Dynamite Comics. A really nice, is it Lyrics Lee cover? Because for obvious reasons. However, Betty Page #1 was decent. It was all right. It's written by Mirka and Dolfo. I really liked her Red Sonja recent book that she did over at Dynamite, but the Betty Page just didn't connect with me. I really like the Betty Page books from Dynamite, where it's more like she's the monster hunter, she's the paranormal investigator. This one is more about her just being, you know, hired for a job. She's excited for it. She needs some money. She goes there, but it turns out the director's a creep. Oh, we've seen that so many times. It's all right. Some great covers attached to the book, but the book itself was just kind of okay. Didn't really grab my attention. So let's recap. Betty Page was just okay. Drag Queen, or a Death Drop Drag Assassin, I really enjoyed that one. Mothman sucked. That sucked. The Nasty was so nastily awesome. Queen of Swords was really awesome as well. I really liked that. Had a lot of fun. Xeno was a really cool sci-fi anthology with a dark skew to it. Nightmare Country, losing me. Wildcats, you losing me. Spirit World, you've lost me. Superman Lost, you losing me. Batman Incorporated is awesome. Green Lantern was really fun. In fact, better than the first issue in my opinion. Moon Knight was absolutely fantastic. Excellent was, well, excellent. Clobberin' Time clobbered my time. I had a lot of fun with that. Doctor Strange was just okay. The artwork could have been a little bit better. Carnage, a really great way to do a very intentional crossover. And I like that. I think that's cool. Amazing Spider-Man, Tonal Clash. You're messing with us. It's a terrible run of Spider-Man. SpiderMan India didn't do much for me. Black Panther has some cool promise. It's a cool direction, but for the most part, didn't really work for me. Old Dog worked for me. Love those concepts. Gunslinger, this book keeps getting better and better and better. And I'm loving Brett Booth more and more and more. Something Epic was truly epic and very well done. Still some things to work out there. But for the most part, it's cool. And don't forget, the smell of the week was something. I don't even remember what the hell it was. Anyway, Battle Chasers #10. I had a lot of fun with this one. And it's the cover of the week. For obvious reasons. Haunt You to the End kind of left me wanting a little bit. The other thing, too, Mothman is from Andrea Muti as well, but he's got an inker on that or something. The art's just way off for me in the Mothman book. Klik, Klik, Boom had a lot of fun with this from our friend Doug Wagner. That was a really great crime fiction story. And then Void Rivals. I just applaud this book for being able to maintain the secret for so long. Honestly, it wasn't spoiled until like 3 days before release. So anyway, there you go. That's what I read. That's what I thought about it. What are you reading? What are you digging? Let us know in the comments down below. I've been Rockin' Robbie Billups. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to join us over at patreon.com/PCP if you want to help support this channel. But all the support we need is a like, a share, and a subscription if you haven't done so already. I've been Rockin' Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Station. Pop, pop, boom!